Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hey everybody, it's Weird Islanders, the podcast, back once again. My name is Dan. That is Mike. How are you this evening, Mike?
Very excited, as always, to do these episodes, and I'm really excited to talk about this specific player we have on tap, but also pretty pumped to talk about one of my favorite kind of NHL characters or roles that this player played. The stopgap kind of key holder for a rebuilding team. He had to wear it on some nights, for sure. And speaking of wearing it, also some of my favorite equipment to ever grace the Nassau Coliseum ice is the pads that this player wore were really cool. And of course, we have a really special guest today too. We've had our first former Islander on the show, and now we have our first ever current professional hockey player on. So we are this season we've been breaking the mold. We're on to big things here on Weird Islanders, the podcast. So I'm really jacked up to do this episode.
Well, so am I, and yeah, we have a reputation, and we've been trying to increase our stable of fantastic guests, and tonight is no different. We have one of the goalies of the New York Sirens of the PWHL. She also happens to be one of the most decorated goalies in the history of Boston College, and as we will find out, is an enormous Islanders fan, and we're so honored and thrilled to have on Abbey Levy. Abbey, how are you?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. I'm super excited to speak with you all today and talk about some Islanders content. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We can't wait. I've wanted to get you on this show ever since you came to UBS Arena for a game last year in your Rick DiPietro jersey that we will ask you all about in a few minutes because I can't wait to get there and hear the whole story behind that jersey. We are first going to talk about the Sirens. Your second season starts on December 1st at Prudential Center. Last year was the first season for the entire league. Everything is the first everything. Now you're going into your second season. Your teammates are back for the most part. Is the preparation different for a second season than it was for the first season when, everything you do is really going to be the first thing ever in the league?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming into last year, it was the first time ever a professional women's hockey league has started to this category. And it was something so unique to the world that it was just a growth mindset of getting all the individuals involved and just kind of showing our game and trying to get fans to really show out. So then when it comes to this year, it's all about now growing the game even further and taking that next step and just having that growth mindset with a new league and new opportunities for all these women. So it's really exciting. And kind of the mindset we want to go into this is now we're in a new home spot, and how do we grow that fan base in that area, and how do we become such an amazing program in that area?
That's awesome. I mean, I might as well ask now. You are moving to Prudential Center this year from UBS Arena last year. How does that change things? I got to be honest. For me, it makes things a lot easier because I live in New Jersey, so I can go to a game a lot easier now. But how does that change things, not just for you, but for your teammates as well? I mean, is this going to mean a longer commute? Is people finding new housing? But maybe the facilities are better. What's different now about Prudential Center than it was in UBS?
Oh yeah, it's a big change just because of location. I mean, last year we were practicing in Connecticut and then playing some games in Bridgeport, some games at UBS, and then even some at the Prudential Center. So a lot of traveling, and if you're not a New Yorker, you don't understand that rush hour traffic.
Seriously.
So so this year it's so much better, I think, for us and for our program because we're in one spot. We have a place to call our home. We're not too much traveling to go, and all the girls were able to move close to Newark. I mean, I stayed living in my hometown house with my parents because I'm a New Yorker, so it's only like a 40-minute commute on the Garden Parkway, so it's not bad.
And I got to ask about the pads, the setup that you have going into the new season. I saw them make the rounds on Twitter earlier this month. They're amazing. I love Joey MacDonald's pads quite a bit, and Rick DiPietro for Islander goalies, but these might be even better than Rick's bright orange pads that he wore in that was the 2006 season. These are incredible. Well, how much did you have on these, and how did they kind of just come to be? Because they're incredible to look at. It is art.
Yeah. Honestly, like designing pads is like a huge part of who I am, and I think it starts from when I was a kid on the glass staring at DiPietro's pads and MacDonald's pads and just falling in love with just how different and unique they were. So nowadays I'm a goalie in the professional league, and now I get the freedom to design my own pads. So every year I draw them out, I make them perfect. I talk it over with my siblings, my parents, and they tweak some things for me, and then we kind of come to like a conclusion. Yeah, this is it. And then we go full with that, and then Bauer just does an amazing job with me.
Well, if you ever need another cook in the kitchen, I'm happy to. I'm not an art. I'm no artistic talent, but I can. I'd love to be a part of the process. So I'm going to look at this as my audition to be a part of it, because it's a not a hobby, but something I've always been loving about.
I fully love that. I look at the comments, so I know what people like.
Yeah,
that's great. The mask too. Like, do you put time into designing the mask too, or you have a whole quorum of people to ask about input for the design?
So the mask specifically is probably my least favorite thing to do because I feel like it's so small and it's so hard to see.
Right. Yeah.
But this year I'm going to do something really special with my masks. I'll give you a little insight. Like, I'm going to be working with a community that works with children who just have unfortunate upbringings, and they're going to be helping me draw up a mask. So I'm really excited to give back to them and let them make a mask professionally now.
No, that's awesome. Talk about a blank canvas. Like that's beautiful. Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to see how that comes out. That's going to be great. Yeah, it's kind of a weird, like, I assume for an artist, like, we talk about a blank canvas. At least the canvas is flat. A goalie mask is, it's got all kinds of weird shapes to it. So no, that's awesome. So just getting back to the first season of the Sirens, like, how much of being the first everything did that weigh on you during the season? Maybe not so much in the game because you're focused on the game itself, but like, did you ever like take time to kind of sit back and reflect on, wow, this is such a huge moment, and this is everything we do is really kind of going to go into the history books at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it felt like every single game there was just a milestone that was hit, whether it was fans, a shootout win, or just something to the caliber of the first ever in the league.
Right.
So like, as a team, winning that first game ever in the PWHL, that was just a huge moment.
And that includes this moment as well, the very first PWHL regular season winner New York. New York gets the first goal in the Professional Women's League off the stick of Ella Shelton. And that will do it.
That'll be a puck that will go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and one that Ella Shelton will never forget. And no matter who is victorious in this one, it being New York today, truly it's a victory for the game.
And then personally for me was my first win ever at UBS Arena in a shootout, saving that last puck. Like, that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Now Laura Stacy on to try to keep this shootout alive, has to score here. It's Stacy off her backhand, stick handling in, and a great save by Levy, pad save and a beauty. New York, they have their first home win of the season. Abbey Levy, the star in the shootout. And it's a 3-2 final here in New York.
Yeah, huge shootout win over Montreal. I mean, this is your favorite team's home arena. It's your home state. Like, how meaningful is that for you? I mean, obviously, every win is big, but like, you must have just kind of wanted to soak that in forever.
Oh
right?
my gosh. Yes. It was like, I just looked over to my parents in the stands and they were crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is everything to me. Like, you can't write this up. Like, this is just a perfect moment.
That's amazing. Unfortunately, the Sirens did miss the playoffs last year. You do have a new coach in Greg Fargo, who was with Colgate for a while. How has he changed things? And what's the focus on for this year? You had two of the highest scoring players in the league last year on the team, but I guess some things just didn't work out. What's the focus going to be on this year going forward under new coach?
Yeah, I think focus this year is just all about growth and like being better than what we were last year. We have a great team. We have a great coaching staff. Like this year feels different. There's something about it that just feels like a winning atmosphere. And I'm so excited to just play those first couple of games and see what this team has put together. Everyone's been working hard over the off season. It's not fun being the last place team. Like, you don't go into the off season happy. So a lot of us have been working hard.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a long off season, and you sound like you're chomping at the bit really to get started here. And which again is just a few days from now. So that's awesome. We wish you the best of luck. Obviously, we're gonna get back to the Sirens in the upcoming season, and we're gonna talk all about your career throughout this interview. But we are here to talk about a specific weird Islander who you mentioned in our emails back and forth. And I got to tell you, we're very excited to talk about this guy because he's somebody we've been waiting to talk about for a long, long time. And he plays in an era that we keep going back to a lot as this sort of very strange transitional era in Islanders history. And so, Abbey Levy, will you please reveal the subject of tonight's episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast?
We got Joey MacDonald.
That's right. The man himself, Joey MacDonald. Mike, I know I can hear you're ready. You're ready to go here. Before we get into all that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. Or you can join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. So sign up today, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. So before we get to Joey MacDonald, we need to talk about your Islanders fandom, Abby. Your parents met at an Islanders game. Is that true? And they're still season ticket holders?
Yes, they still are. And they did, in fact, meet at an Islanders game where my mom went on the ice to shoot pucks in the net during an intermission. And my dad saw her and said, I must get this woman's number.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes, and they met up at the Marriott across the street.
No way.
Yes.
Do you know who they played? And I'm guessing just from like timelines here, I'm gonna guess they lost because they did a lot of losing back in that era. But right. do you know the opponent or any of the details of the game?
I'd have to ask them, but if I did ask them, I bet you my father would say he was so starstruck he would not remember.
That's really
Oh
awesome.
God.
And
Yeah.
there's still season ticket holders today, right? Like they're still fans.
Yes, we went through the Barclays era. We went
Wow.
through UBS now, Coliseum. We've been everywhere.
Yeah. So wait, Mike and
yeah.
I have met in many Barclays Center games.
I was gonna say, what are some of your like the standout memories you have from the Coliseum? Obviously, it's a building near and dear to our hearts, and one that I mean I think about the Coliseum all the time. What are there any memories, general vibes that stick out to you about Nassau Coliseum and going to games there?
Absolutely. We would go to pretty much every single game as kids, just my whole family, and there's 5 of us. So there was a bunch of little children my parents would have to take care of. So we'd have our seats right on the glass next to the penalty box area. And I think it was called the Business Club back in the day by, I think Mike Bossy owned it or something. And so most of the times me and my siblings would be running around in that area and just having a blast, not really watching the games because we were just a little bit too young. But then as we aged, we started really enjoying the games on the glass. And then there was a big moment we remember. Hillary Duff sat behind us for one of the games. And it was the coolest thing ever because at the time that was Lizzie McGuire for us.
Sure.
So that was huge.
We did a whole episode of Weird Islanders on Mike Comrie, and we spent half the time talking about Hillary Duff because it was she was such a huge star at the time. What is she doing at these games? She has to have some more important place to be than here, right?
Yeah. So she would sit right behind us. And it was just the coolest thing ever.
Oh man, those
awesome. Were great memories. And then we had Sparky over at our house for a couple parties when we were kids. We rid the Zamboni. We've done it all.
That's all. I've never ridden a Zamboni. Is it loud on the Zamboni? I've always wanted to know that because you can't hear anything from the stands, but
it's not that loud. It's just very awkward because everyone's looking at you, and it's a little uncomfortable.
What am I supposed to do here? I don't understand. Am I supposed to wave? Am I the Queen of England? I'm supposed to wave here? I don't understand what's going on. But that is all amazing. And I mean, just that's the full Islanders experience. You're watching the game, they're probably losing, but somehow Hillary Duff is sitting behind you. And Sparky's at your birthday party. That's all of that is completely awesome. And that leads us to the awesome jersey that you wore. I believe it was last March. You're coming into UBS Arena and you're rocking the Rick DiPietro, what we call the pajama jersey with the striping on it. And I got to say too, you also wear 39 because of Rick, right? So this jersey is clearly very meaningful to you, but what made you choose that jersey going into that day? Were you trying to get into a certain mindset?
Oh, absolutely. So the night before I went up to my dad, I was like, Dad, we're playing at UBS. I need a Rick DiPietro jersey. I need to do this for the walk-in. This is everything to me. So we pulled out a few. One had his autograph on it. One was an older jersey. One had the Al Arbor patch.
Right.
So we were like, we got to go Al Arbor because at the time it was a huge moment for that because of, unfortunately, the loss.
Right.
So wore that one. I decided on that one. And growing up, I was number 39 because of him, because he was the first goalie I remembered with the cool pads. So I just had to wear that in walking in.
Yeah, I saw the Al Arbor patch. I was like, this is a true Rick throwback. This isn't like a lot of times I feel like with walk-ins for especially in other leagues when a Ranger will wear an Aaron Judge jersey or something. It feels very performative, but you walk in with a DiPietro with the Al Arbor patch. You're like, wow, this is an Islander fan here because that is an absolute beauty. And I remember that game so well, the Al Arbor game, a big win for the Isles as well, and just a really cool moment that they did. And I feel like that team, even as poor as they finished that season, they kind of rallied around that game. It was like a weird kind of our Stanley Cup moment, but yes, it's a beautiful jersey. Rick, we always joke about how we want to do another spin-off podcast about Rick, just about that career and how the ramifications of the entire thing, the decision to draft him and trade away Luongo, and then on the back end obviously sign that monster deal. because there's so much to dig into there. But it's funny because his like the big picture view of Rick, I feel like in terms of like how the league looks at his career, they say like, oh, he was a bust, but people forget, man, before those two unfortunate, really unlucky injuries, he looked like he was on his way. And he was so much fun to watch. Sometimes make you want to pull your hair out, but other than that, he was a lot of fun to watch. Man, the Rick era, just nothing like it.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever had a chance to meet him? Have you ever talked to him about all this?
Yeah, so not recently, no, but when I was a kid, they do like jersey off the back night.
Right.
And at the time, I believe he was injured. So I I guess my dad, you do an auction for that. And we won that auction to go get the jersey off the back of DiPietro, but he wasn't dressed that night. But like he personally walked out onto the ice, handed it to me, and like had a conversation. And at the time I was 9 years old. Like,
wow.
I was just like in awe. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most famous person ever. And it was like this is my idol type of moment. So he had such an impact on like my hockey career, and he probably has no idea. But he did reach out after that photo was taken and the Islanders posted it in the jersey, and he just was like the fire emoji. It was cute.
Wow. Rick is an awesome dude. Like, we just, he's such a great guy. He's got such a great sense of humor about the way his career kind of unfolded, the contract, the injuries, all that stuff. And he's obviously had made himself a hell of a career as a radio broadcaster. So I'm not surprised that all that happened. That is an incredibly awesome thing. And yeah, you were 9 years old feeling that way. I was just at Comic-Con. I'm 48. I was just at Comic-Con last week, and I walked past Larry Hama, the guy who wrote G.I. Joe comics that I read when I was 9 years old, and I still couldn't talk to him because I had no idea what to say to this guy. So I totally know where you're coming from with that. Yeah. But that's an amazing thing. And this era, again, is full of guys like that. And we're here to talk about a guy who, for a time, was one of Rick's many backups. I mean, you play for the Islanders that long, you're going to end up having a lot of backup goalies. And so, Abby, when you first see the name Joey MacDonald, which again, who was on the list that I had sent you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see that name, or the first memory that you have?
So he handed me his stick and his jersey one game.
Oh, damn.
I have a really cute picture with him, and I was 8. So
oh man,
that's a great memory that I have when I hear him, but also the cool pads.
I mean, the feedback on the DiPietro jersey in a walk-in was really great. But Matt, if you walked into a game at UBS Arena rocking a Joey MacDonald jersey instead of the Rick jersey, I think I would have fainted. Like, what is going on here? But I think the first thing that pops to my mind with Joey MacDonald is those pads. Like those pads, though, they were so clean. The white, they were kind of like mainly white with the knee section was orange with like the striping being Islander blue. And I was like, this guy, he looks the part. And his helmet his mask was painted really well too. Had a cool lighthouse on it. And like I said off the top, like I just remember being like, this is like the perfect goalie for this moment where they're giving Joey MacDonald the keys to like be Rick's number 2. He obviously was battling some injuries. And the Islanders were not going to do well this season. They knew it, but this was like the perfect, hey, you come here, show us, do a job, and you can kind of earn some more, NHL deals down the line or anything. And I like that this guy, even though it wasn't a long commitment from him, like I was like, I like that he chose the Islanders here for this little kind of side quest of his in his career. And as we'll talk about, like started really well in the season, which you might not remember it if you're listening to this because of the way the season ended up, but the Islanders had a very interesting beginning to this year, and all of a sudden, because of Joey MacDonald, like had a little bit of hope, which we'll get into.
Yeah, this was an interesting season, even before the season started, which again is a kind of a common thing with the Islanders back there. But before we get to Joey MacDonald's Islanders time, we're going to blitz through his pre-Islanders time because he had an interesting career leading up to that point. Undrafted out of the Peterborough Pete's organization, signs a pro contract with Toledo of the ECHL, and on the same day, he gets his first ever pro shutout, signs a contract with the Detroit Red Wings, which is a pretty amazing double thing to do in the same day. And he ends up moving to the Detroit organization and playing in Grand Rapids for the next 4 or 5 seasons. Like he's there every single day starting AHL goalie. He eventually gets lost on waivers from the Red Wings. He ends up playing for the Bruins for a couple of games. And in 2006, he is a free agent and he signs with the Islanders, and he ends up playing mostly in Bridgeport that year. He does get into a fight at one point. At the time, it was the biggest brawl in Bridgeport Sound Tigers history.
Morency getting hit hard by Engelin, and now the goalies are going to drop the gloves and go. Joey Mac is going to fight John Curry. A complete line brawl here at Harbor Yard. Curry takes off the helmets. Most of the other fights have ceased. MacDonald dropping the gloves with the netminder from the Penguins, Curry. They're tied up. MacDonald connects on the left. Tries to reach around. He has Curry tied up in the back. MacDonald looking to come in with a left. Curry missing with a right. They're still tied up. Little stiff left from Curry, missing on MacDonald. Now Curry goes down, and MacDonald lands on top of him. They continue to grapple in the slot of the Bridgeport zone. Curry rolls around, looks to land on top of Joey MacDonald, and the linesman coming to separate those two. A complete line brawl. Meanwhile, as Morency continues to try to go after Tim Brent.
Of all the videos I looked for on Joey MacDonald on YouTube, this fight was the one that had the most different versions, because there's about 10 different angles of the same fight. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But coming into 2008, 2009, the Islanders needed a backup goalie. Rick was the starter, and the competition was basically down to Joey MacDonald, Jan Denis, and Wade Dubielewicz. And Dubielewicz at this point had kind of left. I think there was something going on where MacDonald had like a one-way contract and Dubielewicz hadn't signed. I don't know. It was a whole thing. But at the end of the day, at the end of camp, I should say, Joey MacDonald was the backup for Rick. And unfortunately, Rick got hurt. And that meant that MacDonald gets pressed into starting duty when, like, a week before, he was going to be the backup. We'll get back to this in a second. But Abby, as a goalie, or really as any player, but specifically as a goalie, because it's such an important position, it's really the most important position on the team. Like when you're facing one particular role, and then just in a blink of an eye, that role changes. You go from backup to starter, or you go from starter to backup, or whatever. Like, does your mindset change going into the games now? Or are you still trying to prepare the same way? Or is it all of a sudden like, oh, wow, this is something that I wasn't expecting, but now I have to get ready for it?
Yeah, you definitely have to look at it in a different perspective. If you're that starting goalie and you're expected to play every game, you have to have a certain mindset in every single practice, every single meal you eat. And then if you're that backup, you also have to have a different mindset in practice. Like, hey, like, I got to be on deck, and the starting goalie's not going to take as many reps because they're going to get tired. So I got to be the one taking all the reps.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's a different mindset you have to go into. But if it's so unexpected, like an injury, it's kind of better to not know it's happening, because then you don't double think yourself. So it's good.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's fair to say there wasn't much, pressure on Joey MacDonald or eventually Jan Denis to come into the year. It wasn't this season the Islanders are pinning some pretty big expectations and hopes on their goaltending tandem. I mean, when you think about the Islanders in this era, strong goaltending is one of the first things that comes to the mind. But as we talk about a lot on Islanders anxiety, we go back to previous eras, and that wasn't the case. It was a rotating kind of door of goaltenders from Dwayne Rollison, Marty Biron, Nabokov, Jan Denis, Joey MacDonald, etc. I mean, Peter Menino, I think, featured in this season or the next one as well. So it's very weird to think about the Islanders back then and this kind of rotating cast of journeymen. Of course, Rick is kind of the constant in all of this, because he's the reason they had to get all these journeymen, because he was never real. You couldn't really rely on him to stay healthy. But MacDonald comes in, no expectations, no pressure on him, and it ends up being him and Jan Denis. And as I was saying, like, they get off to a good start here. Right. And I liked him immediately, because I was like, wow, this guy, he's going to have one of these seasons. He's going to have one of these out of nowhere. I mean, we saw like the Hamburglar run from Andrew Hammond a couple of years later with Ottawa. Yeah. But I was like, did we just find a goalie who's going to do something crazy? Spoiler alert, no. But for a little while there, it did seem like the Islanders were about to do something really silly. They won. I guess you could say they won the October or November Stanley Cup, but that doesn't go into history books.
And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. Yeah, I was shocked when I was researching this and found out that Joey MacDonald, the guy who wasn't even supposed to be the starter, ended up being named the third star of NHL for November of 2008 because he shot right out of the gates. He was the starter for their home opening win over St. Louis, a game that, the Islanders, if you go back through history, they don't win a lot of home openers, particularly in this era. But he was the goalie in net when they beat the Blues that night.
And we come down to the closing seconds for Scott Gordon. His first win as a National Hockey League head coach is now secure.
Now Joey MacDonald's got the puck too. They have to fight over that one.
That's right, because Joey MacDonald, also a winning goaltender for the first time. MacDonald, a New York Islander, gets his first win for New York, not in the NHL. He was 3-9 lifetime coming into this game.
The second star from the New York Islanders, number 11, Andy
Hilbert, star number 2, and I have to think the goaltender is going to be star number 1, but let's see. Andy Hilbert with his first career shorthanded goal, and it is Joey MacDonald, star number 1.
Number 35, Joey MacDonald. Good stuff, perhaps allowing the Islanders to give DiPietro one more game off to allow him to be
perfect. And Joey's set to talk about it with CJ Papa.
Thanks a lot, Howie. And first of all, Joey, the fans didn't know much about you coming in. Your first victory as an Islander, fourth in your NHL career. But how about hearing the chants of Joey?
Oh, it's unbelievable. This is the best place I ever played at. Hearing a chant like that and the support behind us, it's unbelievable. It's great that we came out and got the win tonight. It's great when you get the first home win and just keep the fan support.
It was like, he went, I think 8-3 and something. I don't know. They came out hot, and it did look like, oh my gosh, are the Islanders going to put together some sort of like magical Cinderella season right now? And again, this was a team that had really no expectations. I mean, they would eventually end up with the first overall pick. How do you stay in this kind of hot streak mindset? How do you do that as a goalie? Like, I mean, well, first of all, I should ask, it's a two-part question. One, are you superstitious and are you one of the like, I can't change my socks because I won last night or something like that? But also, how did you keep focused like this to keep a winning streak going, particularly when you start the season? You probably just don't want to lose it because then you're afraid that, the whole thing might go off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely. But on that superstition part, no, I am far from the superstitious goalie. I've never liked being that way. I don't think that something changes in your game routine, it should affect your game. So I don't want to even think about that. But going off of keeping that winning streak, it's kind of like, yes, you won, but you have to live in the present moment. That was yesterday's past. Like, we're still going forward. Like, appreciate your wins, but know that you still got a season to look forward to. Like, you can't really be so excited. You just have to keep going and keep moving and keep moving. And that's kind of the mindset you have to be in. And it seems like he kind of was in one in the beginning, like that 8-3 start you said. Like, it's impressive as an NHL goaltender coming into that. He was definitely in the moment. He was definitely focused. He was definitely ready to go every game. So it was good for him.
Yeah. Sorry, it was 7-3-1 in his first 11 games. That's crazy.
And the rest of the team was, I'm being hyperbolic with their start. Like they were, I think they started like 2-1 or 2-2 in the season. But considering their expectations, that was just like that was enough to be like, okay, I'm in. But I feel like the rest of the team, was struggling. If you look at the stats for this group, it's pretty ugly. I think this was the year. Yeah, this is the year Mark Streit from the blue line led them in points with 56, and then it was Kyle Okposo was the second highest scorer with 39 points, which really tells you where this team was going. But MacDonald ends up being one of the early bright spots for this group, which was a mishmash of we call them like the mercenary teams from the post lockout years, and then Garth Snow obviously saw the writing on the wall and was starting to rebuild. But MacDonald, he's like weirdly turns into the stabilizing force for this team, endears himself to the fans, and I want to say it culminates in like they have a really rough November, but he ends up having one of the most memorable goaltending performances later on in that year, right, Dan? That's is the Red Wings game, right?
Yes.
Where it was like the first time they beat the Red Wings in like, I want to say it was like since I think the previous goalie to beat the Red Wings was Osgood, and then MacDonald beat Osgood in what was a bizarre 42 save stand on your head shutout contest, which and when you're in a situation like that where you can you could clearly tell, and I know you would never tell your teammates this, but the ice is tilted against you, Abby, and it's like I'm gonna be the one to have to win us this game, get us these 2 points. At what point kind of does that become clear to you in a game when the ice is tilted here, but maybe you're up 1-0 and it's like drawing blood from a stone to get another one? Is that on your mind? You put more pressure on yourself when it's a game flow like that, or is it kind of just every game you kind of treat the same?
No, it's definitely game to game. You have to have a different approach, especially if the ice is tilted one way. And if it's tilted towards you and all those pucks are coming at you, it's honestly, as a goaltender, I think it's better. I think you're in that flow state. You're making saves here, you're making saves there. You don't have time to think twice. So like for MacDonald, that 42 save shutout, he was probably so focused in on that puck, getting pucks hit at him. He was just so ready to go. And like games like that, those are like the best games ever as a goalie. Like you're saving everything and you're getting all the shots too. So it's for him, that was probably amazing.
Yeah, we hear that a lot in games, and it's almost like I totally believe that, but also the other opposite way, you can understand why that would be the case, because if you're not seeing a puck that often, and you're not the other team is this is the I watched Marty Brodeur do this for years, where the Devils would give up 15 shots in a game, and he was just there to stop them all, and people used to say all the time, that's really hard to do, like to just be ready at a moment's notice because you might see 4 shots in a period, right? Like that's hard to keep the focus like that. It's one thing when you're focused and everything's flying at you, but to stay focused with a shot every 5 minutes is probably even more hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are definitely the hardest games, is the ones that there's 4 shots a period and there are 4 breakaways, or there are 4 2-on-0s.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Or you're playing for the Islanders, 4 shots that are coming off of 4 different defensemen's skates and fly past you, which happens a lot. We will get to that March game in a little bit, but unfortunately, as great as MacDonald was in November, December was a different story, and he lost 11 straight games. There was a couple of shootouts or whatever in there, but ultimately midnight came and he turned back into a pumpkin there for a while. And all of a sudden, all the great vibes and whatever was working in November wasn't working in December. Again, I'm not trying to put this all on him, because this team was going to ultimately be lottery bound. But Abby, this is sort of like the opposite of the question I just asked you before. When you're in a slump like this and just nothing is working, like what is, I know goalies will always say you have to stay positive, but like, what are the things that you can do in a situation like this where you just need to get a win and it just isn't happening for you? I mean, hopefully this hasn't happened to you that often, but I imagine as a goalie, you have been in situations like this where it just, everything you do just isn't working. And I feel like that's kind of the way it was. I was there and I kind of felt like this way for the Islanders at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's slumps. Every player is going to hit a slump.
Sure.
Every goalie is going to hit a slump. And when that happens, it's what is your routine to get out of that slump? So we have routines to get ready for games. We also have routines to get out of a funk. So for me specifically, I mean, I'm a woman, so I go get my nails done. I go get my feet done. I do some self-care. So that
That's
kind of
awesome.
takes my head away from the game, and I just
Right.
feel more like a human again. I don't feel like a robot goalie. And that's something that makes you appreciate the game when you come back to it and you're like, you know what? Like, let's have some fun. Like, I'm in a slump, but we're going to have fun. So you just kind of have to remove yourself from the game for a second, take a breath, then you come back.
And you talked about not being superstitious when it comes to your playing goal or slump busting routine when it comes to playing goal. But as an Islander fan, I like to think I'm not superstitious, but I am. I if the Islanders are a couple of weeks ago they had a comeback win against the Penguins where I turned the game off after they went down 3-1, and I saw they'd come back and I didn't turn it back on because I didn't want to ruin it, because I would absolutely blame myself for that. But so when it comes to superstitions or routines, are there any for actually watching Islander games? Is there a certain place you want to watch them? Is there any superstitions to break out an Islanders out of a slump? And I'm asking because I need some new material when it comes to these tough losing streaks or any other situations, because I feel like I've tried everything in the book and it doesn't seem to work.
It's so funny you say that because my brother's the same way with turning off the TV or going to a different game, just watching the other game. And hopefully when you come back, the score's no different or something's different. But for me, I mean, this is my life. I live, eat, sleep, breathe hockey. So when I'm watching a game, I understand the emotions are going to flow. And I just never let myself get too involved with something that it's going to affect how I feel. So when I'm watching a game, it's, oh, shoot, the Islanders are losing. They do that. That happens. It's hockey. So I kind of just understand where they're at, and it doesn't quite affect me as much.
Oh,
I'm jealous.
That makes sense. Yeah, I know, me too. I've gotten better about being superstitious because I realized after a while, like I've been sitting in the same spot in the same way, doing the same thing all the time, and yet I keep watching them lose games. So what good is this superstition if it's not actually doing anything, right? Like,
well, I can tell you guys this. It does not matter what you guys do. The team's gonna play the way they're gonna play.
You heard it here, folks. Abbey Levy.
I have to push back. I'm telling you, one room. I have got 2 rooms that I could watch the game in, and I know one room. My record is like this season. I've seen 4 of their 6 wins this season, or 5 out of their 7 wins. So I know that is why they're winning or losing. It's because of where I am standing in my house in Baldwin watching these games. It's got nothing to do with the way they're playing or defensive structure or anything. It's me and my physical location of watching these games. I'm sure there's a lot of Sirens fans who feel the same way. It's their fault. It's not you guys. They deserve the wins or losses.
This is why I don't go to games anymore, because every time I go, they lose. And I don't think I've seen them score a goal in the last 2 or 3 games I've been to. I don't think I've ever seen them score a goal at UBS Arena, now that I think about it. But,
wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the 2-0 loss to the Penguins and then a 1-0 loss to Nashville. Those are my last 2 games at UBS. So I'm trying to stay away as best I can. All right. So Joey MacDonald has this great November, a terrible December, and then in January, he ends up getting hurt. And it wasn't as long-term as Rick's injury at that time, which I believe was knee, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, MacDonald at this point gives way to a Michael Leboff favorite, Jan Denis, another legendary Islanders goalie who would step in and take over the starter's net for a while. And actually, his numbers were actually really good. Abby, first of all, you didn't mention him, but if you're a big Joey MacDonald, Rick DiPietro fan, you have to have remembered Jan Denis, right? I mean, he was around for the Islanders for a long time. Do you have any memories of him at all?
I definitely watched him, but I must have been so upset because my 2 favorite weren't playing. As a kid, I probably was throwing a tantrum over it.
Who the hell is this guy? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, this is a thing I'm sure that happens to goalies all the time. All of a sudden, yeah, you know, it's one thing to go from, oh, I was going to be the backup and now the starter, to now being like, oh, I was the starter and now I'm the backup. I mentioned it before, the being positive. How do you stay positive in a situation like that? Is it just as like you just saying, a matter of like taking your mind off the game and just, focusing on what you need to do as the backup?
Yeah, I mean, life's going to throw curveballs at everyone in the world. So if your career is watched by millions of people, I mean, you kind of have to step away for a second and just be like, let me be with myself. Let me figure this out. Cause I doubt you guys think about your careers every single night, every single after you're like normal people don't go through that. So like as a professional, we shouldn't either. We should go home and just get away from the game for just a second and just be with yourself. So you just have to be very open-minded as a goaltender. Things are going to change. You're not going to have the best night. No one can be perfect. So,
and you mentioned the numbers for Jan Denis, Dan, like, and MacDonald, by the way. And this is a different era where like we're now seeing, the goaltending, save percentages are slowly kind of trending down in the league for different reasons. But considering the team they were playing behind, Jan Denis posted a 910 save percentage, and Joey MacDonald is just north of 900 at 901. Like
910's good,
really good. Look, the blue line he was playing behind was certainly not. It's not like Nick Lidstrom back there. We're talking, Brendan Witt and whatever was left of Andy Sutton at that point. I think Thomas Polk and Joe Callahan. It wasn't a who's who back there on D. And but there's one of my favorite pictures from this era. If you search, Jan Denis, Joey MacDonald on Getty Images, there's this picture of the two of them, going through their warm up routine and warm up stretches. And Denis is just like right in front of the way the picture's angled. It's like Jan Denis right in front of Joey MacDonald. And I gotta say, like, and I mean this out of a place of love and with all due respect to both Jan Denis and Joey MacDonald, but I can't imagine a less intimidating goaltending duo to be staring down at the other end of the ice than Jan Denis and Joey MacDonald in Islander garb too. It's just like you must have, whoever they were playing that night must have been like, all right, like this is going to be a good night. We got Joe Callahan playing in front of these two guys, but full credit to both Jan Denis and Joey MacDonald for, like I said off the top, playing the role of the kind of stopgap goalie, the journeyman goalie who kind of sees a team through a rough patch. And they are playing in the National Hockey League. There's only so many spots in the National Hockey League. So of course you're if you're on the fringe like they were, you're going to take the spot. But I do think they deserve like a decent amount of credit. And I'm not saying that this whole podcast is basically tongue in cheek, but I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. Like these two guys were pretty good for a team that frankly didn't earn goaltending performances like they got from these two guys. And because of the situation with Rick and then the Islanders wanting to upgrade, and this kind of started the revolving door of goalies, neither one of them really made the Islanders like their team. But I don't know, they deserve better than the way they're not remembered for being New York Islanders, I would say.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate because these guys stood on their heads like night in, night out, and didn't have a ton to show for it, because again, the guys playing in front of them were either rookies or, maybe journeymen themselves or whatever. And it's a thankless role. Abby, as I'm sure you're going to take the lion's share of the blame when something goes wrong, even when it's not your fault, right? I mean, I think that's probably just how it is for the position. Do you see situations like that and like have sympathy for players like this who are trying their best and really, really laying it all out there they can, even though the team might really be super undermanned? In this case, in this era, the Islanders were undermanned, underpaid, under noticed, under everything. And these guys left it all out there as best they could and tried the best they could, even if it a lot of times just didn't amount to a W.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can't win if the team isn't winning in front of you. And as a goaltender, we know this. Like, we have to deal with, we can never win a game. We can only save a game. We can't score. So we have to really focus in on just stopping the puck. And if the defense breaks down, it's all our fault. So it's like you're not going to get appreciated for wins because it's the players scoring the goals. And then for losses, you're going to get told it's your fault. So it's tough. It's a tough position.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
Mentally tough and physically tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this specific season, like you want to talk about thankless, you come in and you expect Rick to be there, and you know the team is not going to be very good. The Islanders finish 29th in goals scored this year, which is actually pretty shocking that they weren't worse than that, because they had no 20 goal scorers. It was Oposo with 18, then Streit and Bill Guerin with 16 each to lead the team. Sean Bergenheim did have a hat trick this season though, and we are big Sean Bergenheim guys. One of our one of the players on the all handsome team for sure. But like you want like a thankless. That's I think these kind of players, when you look back at like your fandom and whatever, it's been 30, 40 seasons, however long you've been a fan. Like obviously we're not going to remember the 2008, 2009 Islanders as a one of our favorite teams ever, or a team that we're gonna want to celebrate or whatever. But these guys played a pretty big role in just getting the Islanders to the next day, and especially at a time when, as I'm sure you remember, the Lighthouse Project was up in flames at this point. Basically, like it looked really bleak, and we had these guys have to go out there every night playing to very sparse crowds with fans like Abbey Levy asking for Joey MacDonald sticks, but like they did a job. Like this is like a lunch pail hard hat job from Jan Denis and Joey MacDonald, and I know I'm grouping them together, and I don't want to do that too much because we'll have to save space for a Jan Denis episode down the line. But these kind of guys deserve so much more credit than what they're given. Because it's not like the Brian Ralston types, which we've talked about, the guys who come here and kind of pout their way through a losing season. MacDonald and Denis, total pros, good numbers, and I think if they were to come back for alumni night, it might be a smattering of applause, but they deserve the applause that they would get.
I think they would get a good amount of applause. I mean, people remember these guys. Like we're sitting here talking about it, Joey MacDonald all these years later. But I think, and this is where you mentioned before, Mike, I think a lot of the applause that Joey MacDonald would get would be for his one night in Detroit, March 2009. The Islanders, by this point, the season is kind of dead in the water. We're already looking towards John Tavares. I already found one headline from this era that was already like, yeah, well, they're looking to draft that John Tavares guy. Less said about him, the better. But the Islanders go into Detroit facing the defending Stanley Cup champion Detroit Red Wings. Joey MacDonald's old team. He played with a lot of these dudes in Grand Rapids. And what does he do? Puts up a 42 save shutout. Islanders walk out with a 2-0 win.
Control the draw is Lidstrom. Gives to Zetterberg. In front. Oh, MacDonald again. Are you kidding me? What a great save. Unbelievable. Zetterberg couldn't come up with it. Lidstrom for Zetterberg. 20 seconds left. Back to Lidstrom. Rafalski for Datsuk. 15 left. Behind the goal. Datsuk digs it free. Back to Rafalski. A shot. Knocked down. And the Islanders will clear it out. Third period shots. 1907 Detroit. Not to mention the posts. And Joey MacDonald, the former Red Wing who played 8 games with Detroit and Grand Rapids Griffin's all-time leader in victories, gets his first career shutout as the Islanders win 2-0.
Well, he certainly played well, and we'll remember his first shutout.
For the 42 saves or all the goalposts?
Maybe a little bit of both, yeah.
I've seen a lot of Islanders games. I've seen a lot of wins and losses, and this ranks amongst the most unexpected wins I have ever seen the Islanders play. This was insane. I mean, I could picture him making these crazy saves, and even the Detroit broadcasters are like, what is going on right now? Couple of things. Is beating a team that you are connected with really a thing? Like, is that a thing that goalies, or I guess pro athletes, really look for? It's just like, maybe not just a team, but like trying to beat the people on the other side. Is that really motivation? And do we think that maybe Joey MacDonald had a lot of that going on this one night in March 2009 at Joe Louis Arena?
For sure. I think that was the top of his mind was, I want to beat this team. This is my old team. And I think, honestly, this memory for him is probably going to be one of his most favorite NHL memories because it means so much, and who he beat and why and what kind of game it was and just how outstanding he was against his old team. Like, that's something so special to him. And I bet you that's his number one memory in the NHL.
Oh, I can imagine. He got a lot of help from posts in this game, though. If
we
you
don't
watch the
have
video. No, that's okay. And listen, the posts have helped the Islanders a long time. They go back to Chico Resch, in 1975. The posts helped the Islanders out a lot. As a goalie, what are your feelings on getting help from the post? Is that sort of the goalie gods shining down upon you?
So I think it's engraved in most goalies' heads that if a puck hits a post, you were on angle and there was nowhere to shoot. So it's a good thing. When you hear that post, you were on angle and the players couldn't see the net.
Oh, see, this is the kind of stuff that we as the public don't know, Mike. This is the non-goalies. We don't know this kind of stuff. This is amazing. I mean, Mike, you have to remember this game. Like this.
I remember where I was watching it, actually. I remember it was, I was in college and I was home for, I believe, a break. And I remember needing to watch it. I couldn't watch it in my bedroom because there was, my parents had basically moved a bunch of stuff in there while I was away, and I had to watch in my sister's room. And she was, I don't know where she was, but I was like, I got to watch the Islanders in here. And I talk about superstitions. I was like, I can't leave until Joey MacDonald gives up a goal. So there I was just watching this hockey game surrounded by all my sister's stuffed animals, watching Joey MacDonald do his thing. And there's some real poetic stuff about this game. Yeah. One, he's going up against Chris Osgood. So it was, two very different Islander goaltenders who played for the Islanders at very different parts. Like Joey MacDonald and Chris Osgood played for two very, very different Islanders teams. Like Osgood, obviously in the resurgence, then MacDonald on the tail end of that resurgence where they're going towards the rebuild and the lottery. One of my favorite parts of this game was there was this really long shift in the Islanders zone where the Red Wings are just cycling the puck, and it's just Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer. Right. And the Islanders are scrambling in front of Joey MacDonald, and it's Joel Rettklitz, Nate Thompson, and Mike Eagleton are out there on the ice. It's Datsuk to Zetterberg, and then Eagleton's going down to block a shot, and it
can't be emphasized enough. This was the defending Stanley Cup champion Red Wings, and they would go to the finals the next year. That year too, they would go to the finals where they lost the Penguins. So this was not the Yzerman era, but this was the next era, which was just as good. Basically, it
was still Rafalski to Lidstrom to Datsuk to Zetterberg, Michael Samuelson.
Right,
and
he had a sick save on Samuelson.
Yeah, great save, a Superman save on Samuelson.
Right. Samuelson open net. What a stop by MacDonald! My. Samuelson let it go, and a diving Joey MacDonald keeps this game without a goal.
Feeds Cronwall. And across to Hudler. Then Samuelson lobbed by MacDonald. A spectacular save by Joey MacDonald. That's one of the top saves of the year for an Islander goaltender.
How about for a National Hockey League goaltender?
And then you got the Islanders out there, and they look completely out of their depth, except for one guy, and that's Joey MacDonald on this night. And by this point, the season was kind of over, and you're trying to figure out a way to G yourself up for these games. But then for 3 periods, and because the Islanders had Joey MacDonald, you're proud to be an Islander again, and you could see towards the end of the game, the rest of the team, and I'm sure this is something that Abby could speak to too, when you're getting down the stretch of a game and you're having a performance like that, so you're standing on your head and you know it and your teammates know it. What kind of does it do to you emotionally to watch a teammate just sell out because they're trying to get you over the line for a performance that you deserve the 2 points? This is Joey MacDonald's win, and he's got Tim Jackman putting his face in front of Marian Hossa shots, and but do those kind of performances from your teammates, or those acts of kind of selflessness, do those stick with you? Do those kind of do you remember those as they're happening and realize I owe that person a steak dinner as much as they think they owe me one, that shot block, I owe them one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll take my girls to go get coffee in the morning if they stop a puck for me any day. It's just awesome to see a whole team come together and just want something so bad, especially if you're out of the playoffs. It's the end of the year. You got to get through that game, and they're doing all that. That's a team right there. That's awesome to watch.
Yeah, these guys must have come together. But I gotta imagine too, like one of the kind of ironic offshoots of playing for a team that's kind of struggling like this is that you do come together, like almost, as a family, just kind of holding it together, and kind of a crappy situation will just bring you that much closer together. Not that teams that are good aren't close too, but like I can imagine this also brings you together even closer. So he's about to move on. This was unfortunately his Islanders swan song by the end of the season ends a couple weeks later, and he will move on. We'll get onto that in a second. But Abby, when you got the stick from Joey MacDonald, what period of his season was it? What do you remember? Was it the triumphant early part of the season, the sort of difficult middle part, or was it the happy ending section where he is exulting in his massive, huge shutout victory in Detroit?
It was the happy ending part, right at the end of the season. They do like a big auction off the jerseys night at the end of the season. And so he was so happy. I mean, he had his moment. It was nice. He was a great human being, like just an overall great guy. It was so nice to meet him when I was that young.
That was awesome. And like I said, after this, he would move on. His contract was up. And of course, where would he go back? Detroit, where he is sort of prodigal son. He started there and he goes back there. And we love episodes like this of Weird Islanders where guys who, again, play in these sort of difficult situations have these sort of happy endings. And Joey MacDonald got two. Obviously, the game in Detroit where he shut them out. But he goes back to the Red Wings. And at one point, Jimmy Howard gets hurt. And the Red Wings at the time, this would have been in, I guess, 2012. They were going for a NHL record home winning streak, which had been set in like 1920 or something by the Bruins. And, Howard gets hurt and it looks like, well, they're going to, they might not make the record. But unbelievably, once again, Joey MacDonald steps in and for about a month is literally unbeatable. And they finally get to the 21st consecutive home victory, breaks the record. Eventually they settle in on 23. It's still a record today. You could look it up. And the guy in net for those decisive games was one-time New York Islander Joey MacDonald.
Detroit motored its way into the NHL record book, besting Dallas 3-1. That gave the Red Wings 21 straight home wins, breaking the record previously set by the 1929-30 Boston Bruins and Philadelphia in 1976. Detroit jumped on top in the first period on goals by Henrik Zetterberg and Brad Stewart. That was all the scoring goalie Joey MacDonald would need. He made 20 saves and lost his shutout bid with 32.8 seconds left when Adam Burish scored. But that didn't dampen the enthusiasm by the crowd at Joe Louis Arena that gave the Red Wings a standing ovation for the final minute of play while chanting 21.
I found this mind-boggling. I could not believe this. I barely remembered this streak, and I did not remember that Joey MacDonald was the guy in net for this. That's pretty crazy. I mean, Abby, you've set records yourself. Like I said, you're one of the most decorated goalies in the history of BC. You actually have your save percentage in 22-23, 947, set a single season program record. Again, this program goes back years and has had tons of luminaries on it. Again, something like I said before, is a historic like milestone like that on your mind when you're playing. I mean, maybe not so much the save percentage thing, but like going into a game knowing like, wow, we're trying to break a 70-something-year-old record here. That's enormous. I mean, you have a lot of pressure on you already as a goalie, but man, going in with like intentions on breaking a record has to make it just ratchet it up even more, right?
Yeah, I think for team things, yes. Like, it's there. You see it everywhere. You see it on social media. Like, you're coming up to that game.
Right.
So it's in your face, but you kind of have to forget about it in the moment and just play your game. But like personal records, no, I've never thought twice. I've never once been like, oh, I got to hit this. I know this is coming. Like, I never knew any of those things were happening until like end of the season. It would be posted and I'd be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I had no idea.
It's probably the best way to do it. Just be like, oh yeah, about that. That's cool. I did that. That's awesome.
I feel like that's very that's like the opposite of Rick DiPietro. I feel like Rick knew basically every chance he had to set a personal milestone. And
that's pretty funny.
Actually, a tidbit about this part of MacDonald's career, which is just absolutely kind of harrowing and mind blowing, is that he had a contract offer before he signed with Detroit from Yaroslavl Lokomotiv. And had he signed that contract, he would have been killed in that plane crash. So taking that 2-way deal with Detroit, and there's an article about it, about how he credits getting this deal, saving his life, because he said that had he not got this offer to go back to Detroit, a team he wanted to play with, and he knew a few of the guys who were going to Yaroslavl as well, and had he kind of waited any longer and saw who was going over there, he would have signed with them. So he this not to take this into a different direction, but it's a crazy story to see that he literally was saved. The Detroit Red Wings offering him this 2-way deal saved his life.
No, that's incredible. I didn't even notice that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy. And I wonder if that sort of played into that too. And his mindset playing in this game, and he would continue to play after this. He would actually go and play in Europe and had a bunch of stops. He also played with he signed contracts with the Canadiens and Flames at different points. He played a lot for the Flames actually, but he never actually played for the Canadiens. He played in Hamilton for a while, but then he went to Europe and he played for, let me get this right, he played for a couple of years in the DEL for the Shawinigan Wild Wings, which is a great European team name. We see those a lot here on Weird Islanders, and they're always fun. I mean, Abby, you have a very long career ahead of you, obviously, but you have to have had teammates that played in Europe and tried things out over there. And we talked to Darren Quint earlier this year about his time in Europe, which he really enjoyed playing in Germany in particular. Is that something you might be interested in at some point in your career? I mean, obviously, again, you've got a long time here, but is that something you might want to do at one point, is go play in Europe?
Well, I think we've built something so amazing here in the US and Canada with this new league. I think it just tops everything. So for as long as I can, I want to stay with this brand new league that's just absolutely like generational in my opinion. So I really want to stay close to home too. Awesome. I don't see myself making my way over to Europe anytime soon.
Well, that's good. We're happy to have you here on these shows as well. So that'll, I mean, Joey MacDonald, again, just a crazy 51 games as an Islander, 14 wins, 27 losses, 7 overtime losses. Again, the numbers are not that kind, 902 save percentage, but this was a tough gig, man. Like, I don't know if anybody would have done better than he did. And for a time, he did pretty damn well. I got to tell you, I was a little bit surprised at seeing some of these numbers. I mean, that one shutout alone is probably more than he probably would have expected to get with this season. But, and this was a team that ended dead last and ended up getting the first overall pick. But that's a pretty incredible 51 game run of success and failure that I'm sure he probably fondly remembers, even though a lot of pucks ended up flying by him during that season.
Yeah, and I was shocked to see that the 51 games with the Islanders made them his longest tenured team.
That's right.
Which is Joey MacDonald is an Islander. He certainly is. He earned his stripes with the way he kind of held the fort for the 07-08 brief 2-game stint, and then that 08-09 season, which was pretty tough to go through despite his good start to it. But not every player earns their stripes the same way. But Joey definitely he deserves to be remembered fondly for the effort he put forth behind a really, really bad team.
Absolutely. So, Abby, not only are you a decorated goalie, not only are you a pioneer, as well as your PWHL colleagues, you are an expert in Islanders goaltending, as we found out today, up close and personal, meeting some of these guys and talking with them. What are your final thoughts on the Islanders' legacy of Joey MacDonald? Where does he sort of fit in with the other Islanders goaltending greats that you grew up watching and idolizing and brought you to where you are today?
I mean, because he was one of the goalies that left a personal mark on my childhood and got me into goaltending and started my little career when I was 8, him and Rick DiPietro. I'm going to put him as the top 2 in my mind because what he's done for me. Numbers wise, he didn't have the best team in front of him, but he stood up there and he really gave it his all. Right. So I'm going to give him like top 3 just because of that.
Sounds good. I agree. I think he deserves it. He finally, it might have taken a long time, but I think he finally deserves the recognition as well. So like I said, the Sirens season starts on December 1st at Prudential Center. The season goes all the way through April, I believe. So there's plenty of time to get there and take in a game. But not only is that exciting, but we just got some news a couple of days ago that has to be also exciting for the entire league. And that is that PWHL players are going to be added to EA Sports NHL 25 via downloadable content. I can't, I mean, for all the things you and your teammates and your the other players in the league have done, like this has to be one of the major things. I know it's kind of weird because it's a video game and you guys are doing what you're doing in real life, but this is the kind of sort of like mainstream thing that I think really elevates what you're doing, right? Like this has to feel incredibly satisfying to know that you're all going to be added to this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in the game before for USA, but for now this league to take a step into being into the NHL game where kids can grow up playing, I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for the women's sport to grow. Because growing up, I played NHL with my brothers, and it was always, I want to be Crosby, I want to be Varlamov on the Avalanche at the time. So for now, little girls, it's going to be, I want to be Abbey Levy. And it's just going to be something so special to them that maybe one day I can influence a little girl's career just like Joey MacDonald and Rick DiPietro did for me.
One thing I forgot real quick about Joey MacDonald, I forgot that while he was an Islander, he got to train with some firefighters in North Belmore, which is a fun video I found.
Pretty much got like a year's worth of training in the last hour here in North Belmore. Removed a couple doors, they took the roof off the vehicle, went through stabilization, all the safety procedures. Joey did a terrific job, and he's welcome back here anytime. I'd love to have him on my crew any day of the week.
To get the experience what these guys go through in any circumstances, if it's a fire or a rescue or saving someone off the building, it's quite an honor here to spend a few hours with these guys and get to know them.
Let's go Islanders!
Again, that's the kind of experience you can only get when playing for the New York Islanders, but that's pretty wild. Abby, if you could train with firefighters, EMS, police in your hometown, would you take it? Would you want to learn how this is done and maybe show off some of your skills as well?
I don't think I'd survive that.
I definitely wouldn't. So, but that's awesome. Abby, this has been so much fun. We can't thank you enough for coming on and giving us some of your time. We've rocketed through your career, the Sirens second season, Joey MacDonald's career. This has been a lot of fun, and we hope you've had a lot of fun with us. What are your goals for this season? I mean, obviously lifting the Walter Cup would be number one, but where do you want to be at the end of this season?
I really want the Sirens lifting that championship trophy, but at the end of my career, I really want to just keep getting better and just keep improving as a goaltender in this amazing league. Yeah, it's pretty much it.
Yeah. What do you want to see from the Islanders this season? It probably should be a better question.
Stanley Cup, maybe?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, one other thing. You went to Shattuck St. Mary's. I should have mentioned this before, which is a huge thing. We've heard about this. Crosby, Zach Parisi, and you knew Oliver Wahlstrom in high school. Is that true?
Yeah, so he was on our prep team when I was a sophomore.
Have you talked to him at all in the last couple of years while he's been an Islander?
I haven't, but he did go on the ice and shoot on us when we were at Shattuck, and I got to see a shot, and I get why he's in the NHL.
Nice. We hope to see it go into the net a little bit more. But, but Abby, we hope you've had a lot of fun. We can't thank you enough for giving us your time, and good luck this year to you and the Sirens. We'll be watching. I will be at games, I promise you. And we'll all be watching the Islanders together. So we know that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. Anytime. Love talking about the Islanders. So you guys are great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Remember to sign up at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content, or join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Knuckles by Bjorn Falk. Listen to more of Bjorn's music on Bandcamp and on Spotify. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for your most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Michael Leboff, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. I know you're a huge McDonald fan. When this came across and Abby said that, this was a good one to do, I immediately thought of you because I'm like, oh, Mike is going to have a lot to say about Joey MacDonald. But this is the kind of guy that we love. Like, he's out here trying his best for the Islanders, even when, maybe the chips are down and the team is a little bit undermanned.
Yeah, I'm just really happy that we get to give this kind of player his due, because a lot of times on the show we talk about guys on maybe teams that were a little more successful or they had more personal success elsewhere, where MacDonald, he was your quintessential number 3 goalie for many years and finally got a true NHL season under his belt with the Isles, and like he, as we keep saying, he did as well as anybody could have asked for, considering the circumstances. I wouldn't put him as my number 2 or number 3 goalie as far as a New York Islander, but I remember him quite fondly.
Yeah, fondly I think is a good way to put it. I think a lot of it might be based mostly on one game, but it was a hell of a game, and I think he'll take it. I'll take it, and he's I think a guy who if you watched him play, you probably puts a smile on your face when you think of the name Joey MacDonald. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks again to Abbey Levy for joining us. Really appreciate it. Also, huge thanks to Hannah Beckman at the Sirens for helping us set up the entire interview. We went back and forth for a while on emails, and really appreciate her hard work on this as well. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with a brand new Weird Islander and a brand new great guest. Until then, keep the Islanders weird. Go see the New York Sirens play at Prudential Center, and we'll be back soon. Take care. Bye-bye.